Thanks for listening to the Secular HubCast, a podcast made possible through a grant from the American Humanist Association. This show is a project of the Secular Hub, a Denver nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting community, altruism, reason, and education across the diverse secular community of the Front Range region. For more information and to become a member, visit secularhub.org.
I couldn't stop laughing there for a second. All right. Hello, and I'm Paul from the Secular Hub.
Hi, I'm Jesse.
Yeah, this is the Secular HubCast. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the news. Now, not every story that we're going to cover is going to be from yesterday or today or even the day before. Some of it goes back a little ways, but we had to do some research to really bring you all the information.
I myself am not a news junkie, but I like to really get into the news every once in a while and then ignore the news for a little while and then get back into it. That's my kind of diet, kind of a binge and purge on the news. I really like to pay attention and try to keep myself informed about what's going on. It's super hard to know who to trust. That's why I check a lot of sources. And that's what we try to do with what we're working on today. In addition, we also looked at a lot of original source material, not just what news people say, news reporters, journalists, but what the people who make the news, what did they say in the first place that caused the news story? We traced down some of that kind of stuff for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, we kind of focused on things we thought that the secular community would be interested in.
Well, certainly stuff that you and I are interested in, and I've been a party to enough conversations at the Hub to kind of know some of the stuff people are thinking about. So yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to cover Denver, and Jesse is going to cover the rest of the world. For those of you that are following us on the Secular HubCast Twitter, that's at Secular HubCast, a really interesting retweet. So Aaron Ra, who was here a couple weeks ago, right? He now has posted on his website our Q&A that followed the Darwin Day speaking event that he gave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good Q&A, too. We have a couple of interesting Secular Hub members that brought some really fun questions to him. Some were just statements of praise. Others were clarifying questions. And we had one dissenter.
Having our Raw come out was fun. The social media for the Secular HubCast has been a bit of a ghost town. Just recently, I actually obtained access to the Facebook page, Secular HubCast.
That's very exciting, by the way, for our listeners, because we are going to start blogging there. I'm hoping that we get a lot of interaction. Please tweet at us at Secular HubCast or put up posts on the Facebook account. Let us know what you think of these shows. Let us know what you'd like to see improved. Let us know if you disagree with what we're saying.
Yeah, definitely. And
or agree adamantly.
That certainly would work as well. Or be neutral on it. Whatever. Just chime in. We're going to be posting, obviously, in the show notes on secularhub.org. That's where the blog for this episode is. You'll see all the links for all the articles we talk about, but I'm going to be posting some of that on Twitter. We'll be retweeting some of those articles, and we'll also be putting it on the Facebook page to sort of talk about it and cover things that we couldn't cover in the podcast, kind of go in a little more in depth or discuss it from different angles. Could you consider yourself a social media rookie?
Yeah, I already had to delete a tweet because of misspellings. That was fun.
If you want to see some funny mistakes being made, come on over to our social media and see what we do and tell us all about it.
Let's get into the news, shall we? We flipped a coin, and Jesse decided that I should go first. And so I'm going to start here in Denver, and specifically the Denver Post. So many of you probably don't read the Denver Post. I know I don't, but it's incredibly cheap, and that means inexpensive, pardon me. But it's also a great resource for local news here in Denver. So the headline reads, Catholic churches in Colorado will allow formal federal prosecutor to review allegations of sex abuse by priests. A new initiative in conjunction with Colorado Attorney General's office will result in public report. This was published on February 19th, 2019 at 10:04 a.m.
It's new news.
Pretty new news, right? The new news. So just so everybody's aware, I have a summary because this was quite a long article. I've used some quotes from the article itself, and then I've also added a few other pieces of commentary that sort of summarize it in my own words. So I will let you know. But the leaders of the Catholic Church in Colorado will allow a former federal prosecutor to review decades of files related to allegations of sexual abuse of children as part of a landmark agreement with the state's attorney general to evaluate how the church handles those claims. That's the first opening statement, right? So it leads one to wonder why the police haven't done something about these allegations before. Why are they not raiding these institutions, securing their funds, files, and suspected perpetrators? Any comment on that, Jesse? Do you see any?
Well, I can't possibly begin to think of why. If complaints, it'll be interesting because you mentioned explicitly that it said that there's going to be a public report. That's part of the process. So I think that's fantastic. Now, what's included in the report, that'll be interesting to see. Were there credible claims made within the church and made from the church to the police in the past? How many, when, where? It would be interesting to see that stuff. Something was majorly wrong if abuse was happening and it was being reported, but nothing changed. So who was stopping it? Who was preventing action from being taken?
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the church's first and formal opening of the books to the secular community. This is them putting themselves under the scrutiny of people outside the church, whereas in the past, it's been internal only.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, let me get back to the article real quick. The state's 3 Catholic dioceses will have no oversight of the review. Attorney General Phil Weisner, that's Weiser, said Tuesday at a news conference. The diocese also announced that they have established a fund to pay reparations to victims of Colorado priests. So I wonder what those dioceses think is going to come of this report. Not only are they opening up the books, but they're starting to collect money. So right. I think they think they're guilty, right?
They know what's coming. They know that they're going to be found culpable.
Yeah. There's going to be some heads are going to roll. The Attorney General says this is not a criminal investigation, Weisner said. It is an independent inquiry with the full cooperation of the Catholic Church. Now, that's a very nice thing to say, and it's interesting to me that it's not a criminal investigation. The decision adds Colorado to the growing list of states that recently have opted to pursue independent investigations and reviews of child sex abuse by priests as new revelations of abuse continue to be brought to light. Decades of public pressure and internal turmoil have created an environment that allows state authorities to step in, ushering in a new era in the history of the Catholic Church in the United States, experts said.
Okay.
So this really is unprecedented. The fact that now the secular community and the secular authorities are going to go in and assess what the Catholic Church has been doing all these years and how they've been handling these offenses, it's a good thing. But I remain quite skeptical, and I think that'll come out in some of my notes. Do you have anything to add real quick?
Absolutely, I do. It'll be very interesting to see what happens after the police and investigators go and look at them. Are there going to be prosecutions, indictments, trials? They're collecting money to pay out victims, so they're probably hoping for a big round of settlements, and it's just the parishioners' money. It's not like it's the priest's money. The priests look bad, but they figure shell out some money, make the problems go away, get back to business, get back to people tithing and taking confession and all that stuff. Is it going to be full and complete? Are they going to turn over all their records? We'll see. I mean,
according to this, they are.
Hopefully the report will indicate that, and it'll be real interesting to see. Because what I'm interested in is accountability. If you have criminals in a conspiracy to abuse children within the Catholic Church, is the power of that institution strong enough to shield those criminals from prosecution, or will they be prosecuted?
Well, this is not a criminal investigation.
Right.
So that's interesting that you brought that up. But let's get back into it, because it does address many of the things you just mentioned, and you're very right in your thinking. This isn't difficult to decode. So, a final report by former Colorado U.S. Attorney Bob Troyer is expected to be completed by October 1st, and the agreement requires that it be made public. It will include a list of the names of all the diocese priests with credible claims of abuse against them since 1950. Victims' names will not be released, but details of the incidents will be made public, as well as the priest's assignments within the diocese, Wisner said. So any new criminal claims that surface during Troyer's review will be directed to law enforcement agencies if appropriate, the Attorney General said. So these are new claims, new criminal claims that surface during the review. Now, that to me, the wording there is unclear as to whether somebody comes forward and says something during this review or something is found in the review itself and they're deemed new criminal claims. Because this does seem, that language, any new criminal claims that surface during the review, does seem to contradict the statement made earlier by Wisner where he said this is not a criminal investigation. So we don't know exactly what that means. That sentence, or that little statement, any new criminal claims that surface during this review will be directed to law enforcement agencies, is followed directly by this. So there have been no new allegations of sex abuse by Colorado priests since 2002, and no current priests are under such investigation, Denver Archbishop Samuel Aquila, Aquila, Aquila. Well, Samuel Aquila, the Denver Archbishop, said Tuesday. The church in Colorado is confident of the steps its leaders took previously to handle allegations of abuse. So that just leads me to believe that should during this investigation new claims surface, that the teams that are, responding to those claims will direct them to the correct agencies. I'm not sure that new criminal claims discovered by the actual review will be put to the authorities. Yeah, it's just unclear in the article. Well, it's unclear, and there seems to be a contradiction. So it's very unclear right there. Well, okay. I'm not happy with that. This independent file review presents an opportunity for an honest and fair evaluation of the church in Colorado's historic handling of minors' sexual abuse by priests, Aquila also said. So remember the statement, there have been no new allegations since 2002, because that's going to be important later on. Okay. With humility and repentance, we hope the programs announced today will begin a path for victims and their families. That's what the Archbishop said. So just some side bullets here. That's all I have to read from the article, but I have some other interesting tidbits here. So half of Troyer's expected fee, he's going to be paid $300,000 to conduct this 8-month review, will be paid for by the diocese. And the other half will be funded by anonymous donors, that's in air quotes, identified by the Attorney General, according to the agreement. Okay. So a little bit skeptical of where this money is coming from. If I was hired by somebody to look into their accounts, I don't know where my loyalties would lie, especially $300,000 for an 8-month investigation. That seems very expensive.
I would say that's, to me, an apparent conflict of interest.
It does seem to be, yes. So it says here that the donors will have no oversight over the review or get to see an early version of the report. No state funds will be used. So this is not taxpayer dollars, which I agree with completely. However, just because the donors don't have oversight, and neither do the archdiocese, the fact that they don't have oversight is probably a good thing, but if you're signing the check, you've got some level of oversight, it seems to me.
Can I do a cliche?
You may.
He who pays the piper calls the tune.
Exactly. The 3 Colorado dioceses based in Denver, Pueblo, and Colorado Springs also will fund a reparations program to be developed and administered by 2 nationally known claims administration experts. So that's where the money is going to go. And then from there, it's going to go to these administration experts. And then from there, it's going to go to the victims. This is interesting to me because this foreshadows that we are going to find victims that require some compensation. Yeah. Note that they are already expecting to have payout money for abused persons. That's what I put in there in my notes. It seems interesting to me. If you're innocent or at least not guilty of any wrongdoing, why would you get a big fund of cash together to pay people off after this investigation?
Yeah, of course.
It seems very interesting. So, okay, remember when I said that nobody... Oh, go ahead.
Is there any indication how much money they have yet?
They have not, but let's get an indication of what they've already settled. So this is what we can base that indication on, right? We can base that number on. So between 2005 and 2008, the Archdiocese of Denver paid $8.3 million to settle dozens of lawsuits and claims regarding sexual abuse by 3 priests that occurred between 1954 and 1981. Aquila, also said Tuesday the culture had changed significantly within the church since 2002, and that he hopes the diocese's participation in the inquiry will help restore faith after a time of tremendous pain for all Catholics. So let's just be clear here. The culture has changed, apparently from a rape culture to a non-rape oriented culture. So he said this. He said
Well, that's, I mean,
Go ahead.
speaking about culture is a very interesting point. Like, the culture from the outside forced the church to change.
Yeah, it wasn't an interior thing.
Yeah.
This is secular community. This is community at large. This is police and media. Yeah. Okay, so the last half of that sentence, he hopes that the diocese's participation in this inquiry will help restore faith after a time of tremendous pain. So he doesn't care, at least in that statement, about the victims. He wants to restore faith in the church because, and he'll talk about this later, the pews are emptying and they're not making money anymore, and there aren't as many people to abuse. He doesn't care, or at least he doesn't seem to care, and I'm gonna make a case in his letter that he writes later that he doesn't care about the victims. It's always in a secondary statement that he refers to the victims. So this is obviously, or it seems to me obviously, an attempt to restore faith in the church, which gives them more power and more money. This isn't because he feels that they've committed an immoral act that requires punishment by the secular community. They don't believe they should go to jail. They believe that they should repent. Anyway, despite the Archbishop's assurance that no priests have been credibly accused of sex abuse since 2002, remember that from before, other cases have caused the relocation or removal of area priests. A priest was removed from the diocese in 2007 after it found a credible and former seminarian's statements that the priest had abused him for years, starting when he was 18. Another priest was relocated from the Denver diocese after the parents of a teenage boy filed a lawsuit stating the priest was grooming their son so he could later abuse the boy. So already we've got lies in print quoted from our current Archbishop of Denver. No credible claims since 2002. Well, except for the one in 2007 and the other one, where it doesn't have the date, but it's after 2002.
Well, he was
and we
just
had to
getting
move this
groomed.
guy somewhere else because he was grooming boys for sexual abuse.
Actually, get around to molesting him.
Yeah, he was really close though. So another article that talks about that particular scandal, the one where the priest was removed in 2007. It's another article published in the Denver Post on November 12th, 2018. And it says, they lied. Archdiocese of Denver removed priest after seminarians abuse allegations, but didn't move to defrock him. So the current Archbishop of Denver, Samuel J. Aquila, heard about these allegations about one of his priests towards this 18-year-old person who was under his seminary wing. A Catholic priest in Denver accused of having sexually abused a young seminarian.
So a seminarian, someone who's attending seminary in order to become a priest.
Exactly. Over the course of 4 years in the early 2000s, was placed in a local church with a school after the Archdiocese of Denver learned of the allegations.
So that would be like when you were in college as a freshman, the dean of the school started molesting you, and it didn't finish until you graduated.
Yeah, so our current archbishop took this priest who had molested a young boy, who was preparing for priesthood himself, took this priest out of his position and put him at the Notre Dame Catholic Church, which also, for those of you that are Catholic that are listening to this and have your children in the Notre Dame Catholic school, he had access to your children.
Yeah, you got our Denver cast-offs.
Oh, that's fun.
I wonder if that's where they shuffle all the worst priests, is just to these centers of priestly decadence. I don't know.
The good news is Kent Droder, that's the priest's name who molested the young boy, was taken out of the Notre Dame Catholic Church. He was placed there by our Archbishop, Denver's Archbishop, I mean. But then after the claims were considered to be credible, he was removed from this Catholic Church and his position there, taken away from those children. It doesn't say where they put him or what they did with him.
Oh, where he washed up.
Yeah.
What?
He's probably somewhere else right now teaching children. Kent, K-E-N-T, Drotar, D-R-O-T-A-R.
Kent Drotar.
You ever meet a guy named Kent Droder, Keep your children, especially your boys, away from him.
Yeah, I guess Catholic priests don't have to go on the sex offender registry if they just get shuffled around.
No, and thank you, Archbishop Aquila, for not taking this man to prison or to the authorities right away and instead putting him at another church where he had access to younger and more helpless children.
And then thanks for lying to all of us about it afterwards. Good job.
Indeed. Well done, sir. Okay, so our Archbishop of Denver, the Honorable Samuel Aquila, wrote a letter to the Archdiocese regarding the defrocking of former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick.
Oh, did he? Tell me, did you happen to get your hands on said letter?
It was published. So Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, accused of molesting a 7-year-old altar boy, as well as seminarians. I think I said Sumerians before, and I meant seminarians, but I've seen Ghostbusters, the movie, too many times, and they talk about Sumerian in that movie, Sumerians. Okay, so anyway, seminarians. He's molested 7-year-old altar boys and seminarians. So Theodore McCarrick molested some kids, molested some seminarians, and our Archbishop, Samuel Aquila, had a letter where he intimated the following. He said, "Personally, I am deeply sorry that both laity," that's the lay person, people that aren't officially in the clergy, but probably working at the church. Later on in this letter, it seems to me that when he's talking about lay person and laity, it's unclear as to whether they're people that are working in the church, not as clergy, but at just working there, helping, or if they're actual people attending the church. So anyway, personally, I am deeply sorry.
Oh, wait, so you're quoting him now?
Yeah, this is his letter. These are bullet points from his letter.
Okay.
I'm not going to read the entire letter. It's kind of long and winded, but anyway. So this is our Honorable Archbishop. So Samuel Aquila says, and I quote, "Personally, I am deeply sorry that both laity and clergy have had to experience this type of betrayal. In response, I am asking every priest in the Archdiocese to offer a Mass each month in reparation for the sins committed by cardinals, bishops, priests, and deacons, and for all sins committed by clergy and lay people against the commandments of our Lord, as well as to pray for healing for the victims of sin." So, as an atheist, or as somebody, I would call myself an anti-theist, not just a lowercase atheist, but I am not claiming there absolutely is no God, but I am claiming that if you believe in God, there's probably something wrong with you in some sense.
Okay.
It's kind of like a mental disorder.
I hear you.
Just to be clear, I'm anti-theist in the sense that I think it is unhealthy to believe the things that theists believe. And I think it's detrimental to society, and I think it's detrimental to our fellow men and women. So, if you find out that a member of your group, and not just a member, but many members of your group, in fact, it's called an epidemic. The letter to the Archdiocese, I'm quoting now, this is the title of his letter. It says, "Letter to the Archdiocese of Denver on the abuse crisis." It's a crisis. This is like an epidemic. It's an outbreak. It's decades long, nearing a century long. You find out, or I would imagine the way that he moved around priests already and has been shown to do so, he's a part of the problem.
Definitely.
He's a part of this institution of molesting sexual predators, right?
Whether he did it or not himself, I don't think there's any credible allegation against him.
Yeah, we don't know yet. Let's find out what they find out.
But if he's been covering it up, because what the articles that I'm going to bring up later are going to talk a lot about people, there are criminals who do abuse, and then there are people who cover up for it.
Sure.
And we don't know why.
It's a different criminal act to cover up for it. It's not the...
Different but associated, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If the first words out of your mouth aren't, "These people need to be put in jail," and instead you're saying, "I want all of our priests," well, I want them, instead of to turn themselves in and go to jail, which is what they should do, I want them to offer Mass in reparation for the sins committed by cardinals and bishops themselves and deacons, and for all the sins committed by clergy and lay people. So everybody's sins in the entire world.
Oh, yeah.
Against the commandments of our Lord.
Well, I'll
as
tell you
well
what,
as to pray. Oh, and by the way, let's pray, which means let's not do anything for the people, the victims of this sin.
Well, you asked me a question. If my group was doing that, so hypothetical, if I found out members of the Secular Hub, not just one person, but a group of people were abusing children or committing some other equally violent acts, yeah, you'd have to go straight, like...
You'd go right to the cops.
To the cops. There's no other thing.
You'd bring that person to the authorities or the authorities to them.
Like, I really love the Hub, but...
Jesse, if I found out you were doing something like this, I would turn you in immediately. I mean, that's the only thing to do. And I love you. You're a good friend of mine. I really like you. But if I found out you were doing something like this, there would be no... I wouldn't be saying,
really
what we need to do, Jesse, is we need to go pray for all the people we raped.
Well, we don't believe in prayer. So
there's no way.
I'd be like, let's do some secular meditation and get really mindful about what we need to do. Or let's go do some volunteer hours to work off the sin
let's not deal with the
of
issue.
Molesting.
Yeah.
No. The molester has to go away, yeah.
Okay.
Far away.
So getting back to this, okay. So he goes on to say, too many seminarians, priests, and bishops knew of the archbishops, and that's Archbishop McCarrick, right? Knew of his behavior and did not restrain him. Now, he came to this conclusion after praying on some specific verses in the Bible where God talks about our fellow man restraining the sinners amongst us.
Okay.
So he's not getting the point here. He's not understanding that these people go to the police. They go to jail. They go through due process. It's not up to priests and seminarians and bishops to restrain him. What are they going to do? Tie him up in a basement? That would also be equally immoral. You go through the secular courts, you go to jail. This is just a complete detachment from any kind of humanity, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Justice is going to work if it's public and open. Yeah. If you have the people who are in charge of the criminals, you have the priests or the upper echelons of the church dispensing justice, they're going to be just as guilty. If they're not just as guilty, because the members of the upper echelons come from the lower ranks.
Sure.
They were in it their whole lives. And they're going to have every instinct to try to protect the institution that they're a part of, that they've devoted their entire life and existence to. So they're going to have every incentive not to protect the church's reputation, to protect it financially. The members, the priests who are doing it are valued more than the population within the church that is like the cattle that are being fed upon by the predators, the sheep, I guess, who are being fleeced by this class, this upper echelon, or this class of priests. Yeah, I don't know. It's very distressing. I was very excited when you came across these stories that indicate that we're going to have members of our government. We have government and religion. It's like a separation of powers kind of thing. And typically the church is...
Well, to be specific, we have a district attorney in Colorado.
The church is
coordinating an investigation from a third party that's being paid by the church and church donors.
Thank you for the clarification.
To conduct the investigation. So it's not fully detached. I wish it were, but it's not.
Right. Yeah, of course it's maybe it's a step in the right direction.
It is clearly.
Maybe it's something that will result in real change. Maybe
I hope so. And by real change, I mean prison sentences for
all
these people involved.
Accountability, yeah.
Yeah. All of them.
Yeah. I don't think I have much more to add to that specific story. Like I said, we have to kind of wait and see now.
Yeah.
When this report comes out, is it going to be...
I've got 3 more bullet points for this letter.
A fig leaf? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, take it away. Is that it for the stuff?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah. So just to be clear, to remind everybody, this is in a letter from the Honorable Archbishop here in Denver, Samuel J. Aquila, to his archdiocese, to everybody under him in his little circle, in his little world. I believe they send these letters also to like the Pope and cardinals and other folks.
Sure, it's on file.
It
here
goes
and
all
there,
over the place. Yeah.
So we're doing a mass for
So far, yeah.
and we're praying.
We're going to pray,
We're
which,
gonna pray.
as we know, does nothing.
We're going to do a monthly mass.
We're going to do a mass, so we're going to expose more people to these predators through monthly mass.
Okay.
Wonderful idea.
What else does the Honorable Aquila?
Okay. So Mr. Aquila, upon reflection of his time spent in Germany touring concentration camps, he says, "As I walked with horror in my heart over the palpable evil present, pondering how could human beings do this to other human beings, I heard in prayer, only Jesus Christ and He alone can redeem this evil. The same is true with the sexual abuse crisis of today, as well as with the emptying of our pews and the abandonment of God by the world." So let's get right down to the short and curlies, if I may, about that particular statement. Because I truncated this letter. He doesn't say only these things in this letter. He goes on and on and on about the Bible and Jesus and we got to pray and all this stuff. And as a throwaway, he says something like, well, we should probably encourage a third-party investigation of our stuff. So that's to his credit. He is calling for this investigation. And at least he's standing up and saying he wants this investigation. But the vast majority, 95% of this letter talks in this type of way. It has this message. So only Jesus Christ can redeem this evil. So it's evil that's doing this, not Catholic priests. And it's not Catholic priests that are going to redeem this. They're not going to be the ones to hold to account. It's Jesus Christ who has to suffer now for their wrongdoings and their sin.
Yeah.
This gets it so ass backwards, it's infuriating. As well as with the emptying of our pews. Are you kidding me?
Well, yeah.
Is that what you're worried about? That nobody's coming to church anymore to get raped and molested so that you can take their fucking money? Pardon my language. But I mean, it speaks worlds about what this guy actually cares about. He actually cares about avoiding any kind of responsibility for himself. He wants to fill up the pews so that there's plenty of people to donate money and to rape. And then he says that the world is abandoning God. Oh,
it's the world's fault.
Oh, no.
Just wait.
That's why the priests are rapists.
Yeah.
Because the world is abandoning God. Excuse me, but these guys are supposedly God's right-hand men, and they're committing these kinds of crimes. I think it's the world should abandon God. I mean, and I think this is a great example of why they should.
Yeah, the lack of responsibility and the lack of vision from these guys.
Yeah.
They've just been in cover their ass mode for so long that they do it reflexively. They don't know how to be responsible.
Well, where
in any way.
Where is the call to the other priests and deacons and archdioceses and archbishops and all? Where is the call to the Catholic Church and its members to say, maybe this isn't the way to do things? Maybe we shouldn't be looking to Jesus and praying and following God. That's what we've been doing, and look at where it's gotten us.
Well,
There's
society's
no
moving
sense.
away. Atheism is growing, or lack of religion is growing.
Yeah, but
He's
there's no sense
complaining
from the people that are doing this.
And there never will be.
Well,
I don't know why you're getting mad about it.
That's ridiculous, because if I was a person
They're irresponsible
who is following a path and it led me into the place where I'm raping children, I would probably look at myself and say, maybe I should adjust my path. I wouldn't say something like,
they're all
I'm
looking
going to
to
keep
Jesus.
doing what I'm doing and just do it more.
We need more Jesus. Yeah. I mean,
well, this is just a failure.
he's not
of
the only
recognition
one
here.
saying that. This is
No, I
there are
know. I'm
lots
just
of guys
saying. Well,
it.
this is a ridiculous way to think. This is why atheists and the secular community and free thinkers and people that recognize logic and reason and science look at these kind of people and think, this guy's got a mental deficiency. This is the disease. This is why I'm an anti-theist, because they cannot and will not hold themselves accountable, and they won't change their method.
Yeah,
it's complete madness.
The religious leaders are never going to change it from inside. The religious adherents, the members who are subjected to it, are never going to change it. It has to be forced from the outside. It's exposure. Members within communities speaking up for years and years didn't change it, but it's exposure from the outside, and disgust and revulsion from the rest of society, and looking at the victims and lifting those people up and listening to their stories. That's what's forcing the change. This guy's he's being dragged kicking and screaming into this third-party investigation. So it's weak, it's watered down. We don't know who the anonymous donors are.
The modern era, right?
We don't know who the anonymous donors are. We don't know the victims are not allowed to participate. There's not even representation. So they're not going to get to see the original evidence. They're only going to see the publicly released report. So he, and you said in his letter, he's spending all his time talking about the same old stuff, talking about Jesus, talking about
how we need to
repent, how the world needs to change, rather than how
he needs to
the
change.
Leadership needs to change,
and how the church needs to change.
Yeah, or how the church needs to go or change or whatever.
They just need to be more churchy. Just do more praying. Okay, so we have also failed to recognize that the spiritual battle is real. This is what he goes on to say. Some say the Lord has forsaken the church, but this is not true, and that is underlined. Rather, there are some within the church who have forsaken Jesus and the gospel. The spiritual battle is real, quote unquote.
Those
right?
faithless losers in the church are doing it.
So
their fault.
No, spiritual. There is no spirit. There's no spirituality. It's not. It doesn't make any sense. That word doesn't mean anything. And to say that the spiritual battle is real is to say something that good and evil are real in some sense outside of just humanity. Yeah. Okay? Human beings are real, and human beings do good things, and human beings do evil things. There is no spiritual battle. So he's just so far off in his thinking. You can obviously tell that I'm upset and infuriated. So some say the Lord has forsaken the church. Like, the reason why these people are being pedophile assholes is because God has forsaken them. But no, that's not it. It's because the church has forsaken Jesus and the gospel. And let me just be clear. I've read the New Testament, and Jesus doesn't say anything about you should or shouldn't rape children. He's completely silent on this point. Okay? And he doesn't talk that much about sexual indiscretion. The Old Testament talks about it, not Jesus. And not only that, but the Old Testament doesn't say you shouldn't rape children. It talks a lot about how people commit incest with their children. Our last bullet point. The devil is real and pulls us away from the ways of Jesus and the love of the Father. The devil uses confusion, chaos, discouragement, and negative thinking to draw us away from Jesus. These are all propped up as reasons why they're having such a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. All this stuff is made up. My personal opinion of religion is that it's a mass delusion that people choose to buy into. And that's why struggling with doubt is commonly referred to in religion. And that's why people have to pray all the time. They pray morning, noon, and night. They pray before meals. They pray together. It's a reinforcing tool to stop intellectual pursuits that might take someone away from the mass delusion. You have to keep buying into the delusion. And so when he talks about the devil's real, when he talks about a spiritual crisis and we need to look to the spiritual truths, those are all make-believe concepts. And if everybody would just stop talking about this abuse stuff and just get back to the basics, we could all get back to living our lives.
Well, and I would agree with all of that, except for I would just modify it slightly. And I would say, first of all, it's not the priests or the human beings involved in the church, according to this archbishop. It's the devil.
Yeah, made up.
The devil's
concept.
doing this.
Yeah, made up concept.
He's confusing us into thinking that raping children is a good idea. That's the problem. It's not me. It's the devil. And this speaks to the real the moral bankruptcy of the church. And I would just change what you said slightly by saying it's not something that people choose, I don't think. They're indoctrinated into it. And if they leave the church, they're excommunicated from their family, from all of their social engagements. They're not considered people by all the people that they've been raised by and loved. Churches use that as real punishment in the here and now. Not only that, but you're going to go to hell in the thereafter or in the hereafter, right? So to me, it's not as much of a choice as it is an indoctrination. This is about brainwashing people into believing this crap and then punishing them not only here and now, but also you're going to go to hell.
I have friends on the other side who stay in a religion or stay connected to a religion that they don't believe in because of family and various, because they're married or because they're parents. So
yeah, all I would just say is this idea of it's a choice to me is a little bit, it's kind of iffy. I'm not sure that a lot of these are choices.
Well,
I don't know that you choose to believe or disbelieve.
Okay, listen. If I was indoctrinated when I was in elementary school to believe that 2 + 2 = 5.
Sure.
And I just believe it without question. But then I start to do, I count things up and I find out that it doesn't seem to, 2 things plus 2 things is not 5.
But that's not a choice then.
Yeah, but
The evidence shows otherwise.
Pray about it and go to my priest and I could do all these things and I could wrestle with it. That's what I was saying about it.
I think it's a choice if you want to announce your disbelief.
I think it's not a choice
or
until
your
it
doubt
becomes a
to
choice.
the people in your life. That's a choice, but it's not a choice as to whether or not you actually believe this stuff.
You can choose to live in denial about it, about what you believe.
Maybe, but to be specific, I'm saying like you may believe or not believe, and that's to me is not a choice. The reason why you do believe may be because of indoctrination, and that's also not a choice. But let's say you are in a family that does believe, and you come to the realization that you don't believe, whether or not to tell your family would be a choice. So
Yeah,
if you're going to
course.
get if you're going to get kicked out of your house or whatever because you told your family, that would be a choice. But whether or not you believe isn't really your choice.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you very much for doing the research and taking responsibility for the discussion that we just did, because I feel smarter about it. And like I said, I'm really interested to follow the story and find out what comes out in the report and actually read the report when it does show up.
Yeah, me too.
But I wanted to go in a slightly different direction because I didn't read about what's happening here in Denver, but I did read about some similar stories or stories that caught my eye kind of on the same subject that are also happening right now. Your story was 4 days ago, 19 February. The first story I'm going to share with you is from CNN.com. It's by Sarah Sidner from February 22nd, 2019. So that's yesterday. R. Kelly turns himself into Chicago police after being indicted on sexual abuse charges. And this story has just been blowing up everywhere, so I'm just going to read a few paragraphs and then we'll get to discussion. Quote, singer R. Kelly was placed in handcuffs as he entered a Chicago police station Friday night, hours after he was indicted on 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 alleged victims. His attorney, Steve Greenberg, said Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx succumbed to public pressure and that his client is an innocent man. Kelly didn't speak to the media. The charges handed up in an indictment from a grand jury span from 1998 to 2010. If convicted, Kelly faces 3 to 7 years in prison for each count. Kelly has been associated with accusations of abuse, manipulation, and inappropriate encounters with girls and young women for more than 2 decades. He has strongly denied the accusations. The indictment accuses Kelly of sexual acts with 3 children older than 13 but younger than 17. There is no age range listed for one of the alleged victims. The charges say Kelly used force or the threat of force. Newly discovered video. A grand jury was convened in Cook County, Illinois earlier this month in connection with new allegations against Kelly, 2 sources close to the case told CNN. That came on the heels of attorney Michael Avenatti announcing he had handed over to the state's attorney's office a videotape that he said showed Kelly having sex with an underage girl. Quote, the tape leaves no question as to whether R. Kelly is guilty of multiple sexual illegal acts against a 14-year-old girl, he told reporters Friday. CNN has seen the VHS tape that appears to show Kelly having sex with a girl who refers to her body parts as 14 years old. The newly unearthed footage, which lasts 42 minutes and 45 seconds, is clear and explicit. What is on the video mirrors some of the alleged acts for which Kelly was arrested in a child pornography case in 2002 when he was 35 and then acquitted 6 years later. So that is all I want to share from the CNN article from yesterday. I want to follow it up with another article from the Chicago Tribune that was released today. And of course, the Chicago Tribune is the hometown paper where this story is taking place, because that's where where R. Kelly turned himself in. And the only reason I'm sharing this one is because it is a follow-up. They had a little more time to read the indictment, and R. Kelly actually went in. So From the Chicago Tribune, an article by, a writing team, Megan Kripo, Jason Meisner, and Lolly Bowian. R&B superstar R. Kelly, who surrendered to Chicago police Friday night after new charges alleging he sexually abused 4 females, was ordered held on $1 million bond Saturday afternoon during his first appearance in Cook County Court. And then the article goes into a discussion of the details in the indictment, and it gets into kind of a lot of graphic stuff about the crimes, both sexual crimes and violence crimes that he's accused of. Guess what's in there? I'm going to leave that out, but the article, there's links to the article if you want to read it on the website, secularhub.org. It alleges that DNA recovered from the victim matches Kelly. All right. So in ordering that bond be set at $250,000 for each of the 4 separate indictments, Judge John Fitzgerald Like Jr. called the allegations against Kelly disturbing and barred him from contact with the alleged victims or any witnesses in the case. He also banned the singer from contact with anyone younger than 18. So that's all I have to share on R. Kelly right now, or what's going on in the news with him. I will say that I took a look at the indictment, because it was included. The Chicago Tribune included a link to that. And it's pretty crazy. I've never actually read a document like that before. And this one's about 30 pages, so I didn't read the whole thing. But it seems like they have a lot of evidence against the guy. And it's just kind of crazy to me.
Against R. Kelly?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here you have a guy who's a privileged guy. He's got a lot of money. He's a rap superstar. He's been accused and gone to jail and won his case against something very similar in the past. But you have multiple women who are accusing him. They appear to have DNA evidence linking him with abuse, and they have a videotape of the guy. Now, we have to say he's innocent until found guilty. But is there anything you'd care to respond? And
yeah, so a couple of things come to mind. For one, this is just another entertainer who either sexually molested or has some completely inappropriate relationship with somebody who's terribly underage. I'm thinking now, these 2 guys really didn't get busted for it, but Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin, and Elvis Presley married what I think was a 12-year-old Priscilla, although she might have been 13, but she moved into his mansion with her parents' consent.
Good call.
When she was 12. So yeah, I mean, this is something that you see with entertainers and people that have a mass appeal, that have people that follow them, that have people that kind of worship them in a way.
Yeah, celebrity.
They're able
status.
to get into positions of power over children and people that are underage. Now, in R. Kelly's defense, I'm not going to defend him really, but I'm just going to say I don't know that a girl that's 14 classifies him as a pedophile. So he's not going after prepubescent women. I think that's a distinction that we don't talk about enough. It doesn't excuse his behavior. I mean, it's still vile what he's done. She's obviously too young to have really a will of her own and an ability to fight him off or to outsmart him or to say no. She feels probably obligated, and that's why it's called statutory rape, right?
Well, and it says that he used threats of violence and actual violence as part of it too.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
a violent sexual assault in some cases.
She's not old enough to be able to do anything.
Don't say she. It's multiple women who are accusing.
Oh, okay. Pardon me.
There are 4 in this lawsuit or in this case. Okay. Or in this indictment, there are 4 separate indictments. So 4 women who are 3 of whom are. It says they were between 13 and 17, and it didn't give the age for the 4th one. So we don't know.
Yeah.
But they're all sexual crimes.
Yeah. Well, and this is just, like I said, it's just in a long list of entertainers that get away with this kind of crap. Luckily, he's not getting away with it, right? He did the first time, and he's not doing it again.
Yeah.
So good.
The only thing I would...
Good riddance, R. Kelly. Although I will say some of his songs are pretty good.
I know. Two points. The only thing I can say in his defense is I'm glad he turned himself in.
Yeah, that was nice.
2 hours later, he didn't try to do anything hinky.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in 2003, he had the song Ignition. Is that the one? It was a big hit. It was like a #1 hit. And the videotape had come out, the abuse tape, or at least segments of it. And I remember like that song was playing all the time. People were singing it. I felt so sketched out. I felt so creeped out. So it's interesting that he's going to have to go back in. He's going to have to go to trial again. And if the case is strong enough and he's found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then he'll go to jail, possibly for up to 7 years for each. But yeah, if he's found guilty, he might have to go to jail for 7 years per crime or per count. So that'll be a long time. Long time.
Good riddance. I hope it's a maximum security place with a lot of big dudes in there that don't like R. Kelly.
Nah, who knows?
No, you know what? I take that back.
I don't want him to be.
I want R. Kelly
I don't want him
have...
to be the victim of crime when he's in jail.
No. I take it back. The human side of me. I'm a human being, right? I have bloodlust. There's a side of me that wants R. Kelly to suffer, but the humanist side of me, the person that interacts with and tries to reflect something moral of myself into the world, wants R. Kelly to have a normal, healthy, happy life. And it looks like that's going to happen in prison. I mean, I do hope he doesn't get off on this. I mean, I do hope that he does get secluded from society. He clearly is not trustworthy in society. But I don't want him to needlessly suffer.
Right. And again, I do want to say innocent till proven guilty, but there's a long pattern of credible accusations going back a long ways, so I would probably have to agree with you. Now, if R. Kelly gives you a sense of bloodlust, just wait until I get into my next story. So the next article I'm going to share with you is somewhat older, although there has been a follow-up in just yesterday. There was a new news article on the same topic. The article I'm going to share with you is from the MiamiHerald.com. The article was written by Julie K. Brown, November 28th, 2018. Now, I'm not going to start at the top. I'm going to jump down a little bit. Quote, Palm Beach multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein, 54, was accused of assembling a large cult-like network of underage girls with the help of young female recruiters to coerce into having sex acts behind the walls of his opulent waterfront mansion as often as 3 times a day, the town of Palm Beach police found. The eccentric hedge fund manager, whose friends included former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Prince Andrew, was also suspected of trafficking minor girls, often from overseas, for sex parties at his other homes in Manhattan, New Mexico, and the Caribbean, FBI and court records show. Facing a 53-page federal indictment, Epstein could have ended up in federal prison for the rest of his life. But a deal was struck. An extraordinary plea deal that would conceal the full extent of Epstein's crimes and the number of people involved. Not only would Epstein serve just 13 months in the county jail, but the deal, called a non-prosecution agreement, essentially shut down an ongoing FBI probe into whether there were more victims and other powerful people who took part in Epstein's sex crimes, according to a Miami Herald examination of thousands of emails, court documents, and FBI records. The pact required Epstein to plead guilty to 2 prostitution charges in state court. Epstein and four of his accomplices named in the agreement received immunity from all federal criminal charges. But even more unusual, the deal included wording that granted immunity to, quote, any potential co-conspirators, unquote, who were also involved in Epstein's crimes. These accomplices or participants were not identified in the agreement, leaving it open to interpretation whether it possibly referred to other influential people who were having sex with underage girls at Epstein's various homes or on his plane. So, Paul, have you heard of this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, before? Epstein.
I hadn't until we spoke earlier.
Okay. So, I'm going to give you a little background because this is a really long article. But there are dozens and possibly over 100 young women. All the accusers are under the age of consent. They're teenage girls. And he was, over the course of years, he had this sort of network where he was like recruiting girls and he would have sex with them or molest them in some way. And he would somehow persuade them or convince them to get other girls. And potentially he's also accused of bringing in other young girls from overseas, taking them to other places around the country, having sex parties. It's pretty unbelievably sordid affair. The reason it's kind of been in the news lately is at the time that the 53-page indictment originally came out against Epstein, the federal prosecutor in his district, the Southern District of Florida, was a man named Alex Acosta. He made the deal that said that Epstein only had to go to jail for 13 months, and it gave immunity to 4 other guys that are kept, they're anonymous. So 4 other child rapists are kept anonymous. And then it makes...
These are still alleged, though, right?
Yeah, it hasn't... No, not in this case, because he went to jail. Now, he only pled guilty to the prostitution thing. Having sex with underage girls wasn't important. It was the fact that he paid for it. That's what he pled to.
I see.
But immunity was granted to 4 other guys who are anonymous and any potential co-conspirators. So that's a pretty amazing power for Alex Acosta, who was the federal prosecutor at the time. That's some incredible power to just extend immunity to who knows how many people.
Well, and it shows a kind of a lack of conviction, right? I mean, are you gonna hold these guys to account and put them in jail, or are you gonna give everybody immunity for a shit plea bargain?
Well, here's the thing.
Just so what? You can say you did something?
Well, they got it. Yeah, they have to do something. The guy's a multimillionaire. He's friends with the Clintons. He's friends with Trump. He's friends with a bunch of guys. And this is definitely conspiracy theory food. You know what I mean? This is fertilizer for conspiracy theories, because you have one guy who's abusing all these girls. He's friends with all these powerful people, and then this Alex Acosta extends immunity to who knows who all. Is it Trump? Is it the Clintons? Is it whoever else?
It's all speculation. Yeah, in that sense.
It is, and that's why
it makes you wonder if this prosecutor just recognizes how powerful this guy's friends are, and is like, "Whoa, I better tread lightly," or if there's actually a reason to, if there, like you said, if this is actually fertilizer for conspiracy theory stuff.
Right. Well, who were those other 4 people who explicitly got immunity?
Right.
And who was he thinking of when he said other potential, quote, any potential co-conspirators?
Yeah.
So that's hideous, but it gets even more hideous because on February 16, 2027, 3 weeks after he was inaugurated, Trump nominated Alex Acosta to become Secretary of Labor, and he was April 28th, he was confirmed. And
so Alex Acosta is the prosecutor, or he's the Attorney General?
In 2005, he was the prosecutor who made the deal with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, okay.
And then 12 years later, he's Secretary of Labor. So he's one of the secretary posts in the Trump administration.
Yeah. Well, so let me just say this real quick. Let me just throw this out there. Okay, so this leads one to ask, did he prosecute under those conditions because he had so little evidence to support his claims, and he needed to do something to slow this guy down because he had all these suspicions and he thought he had enough to at least get this? Or did he set up this bogus deal because of how connected Epstein is?
Well,
his fear that it might go into places like conspiracy theory type shit, right? Where it might be like, oh my God, it's like actually Trump and the Clintons at this sex party. Now I'm hugely skeptical to say something like that, but I'm also wondering, like, that's why I throw that out there. Is this prosecutor doing this deal because he doesn't have enough to really convict on what he's trying to get this guy for? Even if he really believes that that's what this guy's doing?
Well, let me share some more from the article.
Or is he backing off because of how connected Epstein is?
As part of the arrangement, Acosta agreed, despite a federal law to the contrary, that the deal would be kept from the victims. Mm-hmm. As a result, the non-prosecution agreement was sealed until after it was approved by the judge, thereby averting any chance that the girls or anyone else might show up in court and try to derail it. Now President Trump's Secretary of Labor, Acosta, 49, oversees a massive federal agency that provides oversight of the country's labor laws, including human trafficking. So that was November 28th. Acosta remains the Secretary of Labor. He has not lost his position or resigned or anything else. And the reason I was interested in this story is because on February 28th, so 2 days ago, there was another news story on the same case. This is also from the Miami Herald, February 21st, by Julie K. Brown, the same journalist. Headline: Federal prosecutors broke law in Jeffrey Epstein case. Judge rules. Federal prosecutors under former Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta broke the law when they concealed a plea agreement for more than 30 underage victims who had been sexually abused by wealthy New York hedge fund manager Jeffrey Epstein, a federal judge ruled Thursday. While the decision marks a victory for the crime victims, the federal judge, Kenneth A. Mara, stopped short of overturning Epstein's plea deal or issuing an order resolving the case. He instead gave federal prosecutors 15 days to confer with Epstein's victims and their attorneys to come up with a settlement. The victims did not seek money or damages as part of the suit. So that's all I have to say about that right now.
They didn't seek money or damages.
Right. They sued the state rather than trying to go after Jeffrey Epstein. They actually went after the state. So, hold on. Maybe I don't...
If they didn't sue for money and damages, what do they sue for? Epstein's not going to jail.
Well, it's unclear what will happen next.
Yeah.
Like, the judge gave him 15 days to come up with a settlement. So, that seems like a pretty big win for the victims. To like,
Not if they don't get any money. What the fuck are they going to get?
Well, I don't know. They'll like... Perhaps the judge has power to overturn the plea deal. Obviously, you can't take him to court again for the same crime.
Well, I don't want to speculate. I'm just saying it.
Well, you asked a question, and I was trying to answer it.
I know, I'm just saying it, but it sounds like you're speculating. If the article doesn't tell you... This is one of the problems with news sometimes, is they leave a lot of open-ended shit.
Well, they only have so much information. They can't...
I know, I'm just saying,
it's
frustrating. They make a claim, but then they don't back it up with, well, what are they getting, or what is it possible for them to get?
Well, there is actually more information about that.
Oh, okay.
So they have 15 days to try and come up with a deal. If they can't reach a deal, then the judge is going to have to do something. And so he has many powers. I, not being an expert, have no idea what those are, but potentially it could involve going back and looking at the plea deal to see if it was appropriate, because perhaps they could void it and he would have to get resentenced. And of course, this is just from Florida. There's still federal. The FBI had been investigating him for a long time. So there's federal. He could be charged at the federal level. He could be charged in New Mexico. He could be charged in Manhattan. He could potentially be charged, I think, U.S. Virgin Islands. He has a home there. So there could be new indictments in other, legal jurisdictions. So I think it's a pretty huge win. So my interest in the R. Kelly story and the Epstein story is, here you asked a question. We were talking about the Archdiocese of Denver. Why is it happening now? Like, what's different now? I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but what's different like now? Like, why is it happening now? I can't say why, but here you have R. Kelly, who's had credible accusations against him for a long time that he's been able to survive. Mm-hmm. You have Jay Epstein, who potentially committed a vast number of crimes, way more than R. Kelly, and way more probably than any individual Catholic priest.
Potentially,
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe he was colluding. Maybe he was partying with other powerful people who are also engaging in the same sort of crimes.
Maybe.
So it's kind of like, yeah, maybe. It's still speculative at this point. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like...
But you were saying why now?
Yeah, well, why? You have R. Kelly, who's very rich. He's very influential. He's adored. He's very powerful. You have this Epstein character who's incredibly well-connected and has a lot of money. And you have Catholic priests who are the workers, the force that's keeping the Catholic Church alive.
Well, they think they're the Levites, right? They think
know
they're
what that
God's chosen people. Read Leviticus. It talks about the Levites, and it talks about the chosen people who are going to serve essentially as a buffer between the masses and God himself.
Okay.
And that's what the Catholic Church is essentially fashioned after. They took that idea and they institutionalized it.
Fair enough.
But what were you saying?
No, I think it's really wild that we have all these stories kind of happening at the same time. I think it's absolutely unavoidable to connect this to Me Too and to other powerful men. You know, on the Secular Sisterhood episode of the podcast, that was when the Harvey Weinstein stuff was going down, and he was going through his slow motion train wreck of having to leave his powerful position and having to deal with all the accusations. And it's just been, you know, the what's been happening with the Catholic Church has been also just a slow moving train wreck of bad news and for the Catholic Church. But
yeah,
you have wins for all these people who have been abused for so long. They're winning. Their priests are getting defrocked, you know, like they're getting awarded settlements, and the Catholic faith, the religious institution itself, is losing people like crazy.
Yeah.
So
I hope so.
So it's just amazing that, and all these incredible stories, like here you have the Trump administration, you know, it looks apparently connecting this one predator. You have R. Kelly,
Trump was accused by 12 women himself, so he doesn't even need to be linked. He's implicated as a predator himself.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode about, like,
No, I'm just saying.
Steve Bannon's wife made accusations against him.
No, I was just saying
there's a bunch of them.
He seems like based on the allegations made against him. There are reasonable allocations
when he was in
against
charge of
Bill Clinton.
the beauty.
So
cups.
I mean, it's not like he's the first one. I'm just saying, based on the allegations against Trump, he's probably a predator. He's probably a sexual predator.
Pretty pervy, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
of some kind, some stripe.
All right. So I guess that's all I really have to say about those two guys. I do want to kind of tie back to your first story, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, and all I was going to say is
Go
the Catholic Church issues and R. Kelly are pre-Me Too. Not that matters, but I'm just saying it's like, I think the culture shift to speaking out is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Because it needs to come to light. I mean, I understand that it takes a long time for people to process what happened to them and to be comfortable coming out against the people that they feared, because in a lot of cases, these are predators that instill fear in their victims, that they're either going to kill them or their family or whatever.
Or that, you know, if you tell on your priest, you're not going to go to heaven.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of a priest, it's even more fearful. It's even more institutionally fearful, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah, and the priests have so many opportunities to groom children.
Yeah, but it's great that people are coming out and speaking up. To me, that's the huge encouraging thing. And I just hope that, you know, the Catholic Church is going to be held to the same standard that R. Kelly is going to be held to, and all these other people that should go and hopefully will go to jail.
Well, it's very interesting because the Vatican has their own city-state where they get to make the law.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't live there.
Yeah.
The Vatican has their own laws and stuff, but they kind of they're above the law in Denver and Pittsburgh and all the different places in some sense. I mean, it's only in the last couple of years that this stuff is actually coming to light and we're holding these people to account. Before that, it was all interchurch. There was no police, lawyers, none of that stuff. They didn't have any accountability. They weren't going to prison, that's for sure. They're still not really. It's still being handled mostly in the church.
Absolutely.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to wrap up with some discussion of what's actually going on in the Vatican.
This is a good one.
It's kind of fun. You can actually go to vatican.va, the domain, the portal of the Vatican.
If you want to read what the crazies are up to.
Well, there's been a lot of crazy going on because we have the news story that you found here in Denver. I found the R. Kelly story, the J. Epstein story. And in the Vatican today, they're wrapping up a 4-day conclave that they had, a synod. I want to talk about the word synod real quick because it's going to come up in one of the in something from the Pope. Synod, noun, an assembly of the clergy and sometimes also the laity in a diocese or other division of a particular church. So that's what a synod is. So that's what they're holding out there in the Vatican, or that's what they just wrapped up. And what they were holding was a 4-day meeting, a papal extravaganza that they called the protection of minors in the church. So for 4 days, they held a lot of meetings and a lot of prayers, and they gave some speeches. They actually post videos of the shit online. Have you ever heard the Pope talk?
Yeah.
Have you heard him sing?
No.
Okay. Well,
thankfully,
it's
no.
on. It's on the. I'll have a link to it. It's kind of funny if you've never seen it before. It's opulent, and you have all these creaky, like old guys, making these decisions. 1 or 2 nuns, and that's about it. But I'm gonna quote from the Pope. He gave the introductory statement the first day, and he said, "Dear brothers, good morning. In light of the scourge of sexual abuse perpetrated by ecclesiastics to the great harm of minors, I wanted to consult you, patriarchs, cardinals, archbishops, bishops, and religious superiors and leaders, so that together we might listen to the Holy Spirit and, in docility to his guidance, hear the cry of the little ones who plead for justice. In this meeting, we sense the weight of the pastoral and ecclesiastical responsibilities that oblige us to discuss together in a synodal, frank, and in-depth manner how to confront this evil afflicting the church and humanity. The holy people of God looks to us and expects from us not simple and predictable condemnations, but concrete and effective measures to be undertaken. We need to be concrete." Quote, "Finally, I ask the Holy Spirit to sustain us throughout these days and to help us to turn this evil into an opportunity for awareness and purification. May the Virgin Mary enlighten us as we seek to heal the grave wounds that the scandal of pedophilia has caused, both in the little ones and in believers. Thank you." So this, I think, if you analyze it a little bit, tells you a lot about what he's thinking. Because he doesn't say, we have criminals in our church, we need to root them out and put them behind bars. He doesn't say that.
No, and he doesn't say, I'm sure some of you know of a criminal in this room
He doesn't
that you
say
should
that
bring
either.
to me or to the authorities or both and root them out.
Right.
He doesn't say that.
What he says is, together we might listen to the Holy Spirit and in docility to his guidance, hear the cry of the little ones who plead for justice. So what that means is we're all going to sit around and think about the Holy Spirit. What is the Holy
more
Spirit?
Perverse.
Yeah,
I just can't. We're going to call upon the Holy Spirit to hear the cries of the people that we're penetrating with our sinful nature. Really? Is that really what we're going to do? This is just baffling.
Okay. Yeah. And to my mind, the Holy Spirit is something that it comes from within a person's own minds. It's completely fabricated. It's not a spirit. It's just part of your brain confabulating stuff. And it could be intuition, it could be whatever, but it comes from within people's minds. But they attribute it to an outside source, so they don't have to take responsibility for whatever it tells them to do.
So if they don't hear the cries of the people they're raping, then it's the Holy Spirit that didn't reveal them.
Sure, it's pretty perverse. And then again, he calls on the Virgin Mary to enlighten us. That's fine. I got nothing against her. I don't necessarily.
Really?
I don't believe her.
I do.
I don't believe
Yeah.
her. I think she's make believe. And so it's grown men who are in charge of this vast, rich, powerful organization who are going to take no responsibility for what's going on, who are just going to play pretend, and do what you have to. I think this is a marketing exercise. They're not actually trying to fix anything. It's like, it's a marketing extravaganza to like make the people who are victims think that you're doing something, and get all the old guys together. We're going to consult the Holy Spirit and come up with an action plan.
What's the title of this little gathering? What are they called? What did you say it was called? Sorry.
The protection of minors in the church.
Okay. So if you fashion an organization after the the Levites of the Old Testament, you will find, this is what this tells us, you will find yourself in a meeting of sinister virgins trying to figure out how not to rape children. That's the outcome.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen. We have one example of a test. We have the Catholic Church, who organized themselves after the Old Testament Levites. What happens when you do that? Well, you end up raping children. That is the outcome of this particular test.
Well, from Denver to the Holy See, you got children getting raped. All over the globe. Wherever you have Catholic priests.
Not like this.
You got kids getting raped.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This to me is just this is what you get. When are they going to abandon this structure? When are they going to abandon this?
Who's they? They never will.
The Catholics. When are they going to figure this out?
Oh, the laity, the people whose butts are supposed to be in the pews?
All these morons, all the popes and
they're
stuff.
empowered.
When are they going to figure out that
Never.
you can't fashion an organization after the Old Testament? You just can't.
Look, when was Jeffrey Epstein going to stop raping girls? Never.
Yeah.
It wasn't until...
That speaks to something, though, too, and it speaks to... it's going to have to come from external, and we can't stop until they're completely dismantled and abolished. I mean, any group like this, any organization like this is going to attract these types of people. It seems to be exceptionally well done in the Catholic Church. You've got these types of pedophile abusers, who preach virginity and all this other nonsense. And then on the other side of their mouth, out of the other side of their mouth, they're swindling children into disadvantaged positions on the top of desks and whatnot. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, if you think that's ridiculous, wait until you hear what the Pope's critics have to say.
Oh, good.
So I have an article from you from ncregister.com. That's the National Catholic Register. So at this conclave, there are cardinals and archbishops and what have you from hundreds of countries, like 130 countries or something like that, all around the world. And of course, they don't all agree. So in this article, headline, Cardinals Burke and Brandmuller end the conspiracy of silence. In an open letter, the cardinals call on bishops attending this week's Vatican Summit on clerical sex abuse to end their silence on moral corruption in the church and uphold the divine natural law. Paul, do you want to guess where this is going?
No, you go ahead. Take me there.
Okay. Well, I happen to have the text of their open letter. Dear brothers, presidents of the conferences of bishops, we turn to you with deep distress! Exclamation point. The Catholic world is adrift, and, with anguish, the question is asked, where is the Church going? Before the drift-in process, it seems that the difficulty is reduced to that of the abuse of minors, a horrible crime, especially when it is perpetrated by a priest, which is, however, only part of a much greater crisis. That sentence is really goofy. I'm going to do it again. Like, it's got 100 commas. Before the drift-in process, it seems that the difficulty is reduced to that of the abuse of minors, a horrible crime, especially when it is perpetrated by a priest, which is, however, only part of a much greater crisis. The plague of the homosexual agenda has been spread within the Church, promoted by organized networks and protected by a climate of complicity and a conspiracy of silence. The roots of this phenomenon are clearly found in that atmosphere of materialism, of relativism, and of hedonism in which the existence of an absolute moral law that is without exceptions is openly called into question. Sexual abuse is blamed on clericalism, but the first and primary fault of the clergy does not rest in the abuse of power, but in having gone away from the truth of the gospel. The even public denial, by words and by acts, of the divine and natural law is the root of the evil that corrupts certain circles in the Church.
Say that last sentence again.
The even public denial, by words and by acts, of the divine and natural law is at the root of the evil that corrupts certain circles in the Church.
This is funny. So
Hilarious.
These are church people that live by a divine natural law. This is what they do. They just fucking read Bibles and pray and then say that we were created and this is all natural law. And that somehow, surprisingly, right, especially when you read what books they're reading, led them to a crisis of abuse and scandal. Like, this speaks full force and wholeheartedly towards not being someone of religion, not being somebody in the church. Because if you do what they're doing, you'll find yourself apparently completely askew to what they say you're supposed to be doing, but that's all they're doing.
Now, hold on. I would like you to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Consider the plague of the homosexual agenda has been spread within the church. It's not their fault. It's these damn homos. Homosexuals.
They are the homos, though. They're looking at each other going, damn you, homo, and it's the guy, the homo across the desk from him, you know.
Well, I think it's
at the little priests
what's
meeting.
What's horrible about it is that they say...
They hate themselves.
They say it's not abuse of power, and there's a conspiracy of silence that they're turning away from God, and they're not adhering to divine law. That's the real crisis in the church, turning away from moral law and acting gay.
I love how they call it the homosexual agenda.
The plague.
Like it's something outside of their own heads. It's like, look, dude, you're a homo, okay? And I don't know why, but you're telling yourself that you're going to be celibate. And not only are you homosexual, but you happen to like little boys or whatever, right? Like whatever their transgressions are against the lay community, as they call it. I love how they use, you know how like scientists use layman? They use that word, layman, like you're an armchair philosopher or you're a layman, right? Because you don't know all the words that doctors know and shit, right?
Sure.
What the hell do you have to know to be a fucking church person? To be a priest or a deacon or a fucking bishop? Not shit. No, you have to read one shitty book.
You have to go to seminary and get raped for 4 years.
Yeah, you have to read one shitty book for your whole life that has nothing to say about modern society and was a terrible attempt to describe the world around us and how we should live in it. And everybody that doesn't do that is a lay person. They are beneath lay people to me. They know less than your average lay person.
I think of them as like an organized crime cartel.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
But their crime is just ignorance and stupidity.
No, they're really good at obfuscating and making people feel bad so as to distract from what's really going on. That's what their future and their livelihood depends on. Their position in society. I mean, I don't know these guys personally, but I'm assuming that Cardinals Burke and Brandmuller are a couple assholes, and they blame victims. I bet you they're both guilty of moving priests around, if not abuse themselves.
They've probably been moved around.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, if I'm going to try and I'm going to do a Google alert for these particular guys and see if they come up in the future.
Yeah, these guys.
It's shocking that the real crisis is that priests have been molesting and raping people for many years, and these guys barely even acknowledge it. They say it. It's like a throwaway line. They say the horrible crime, which is perpetrated by a priest, is only part of a much greater crisis. The crisis is that you exist and you're allowed to continue and that you haven't been shut down. That's the real crisis.
Yeah, the crisis is the scandal. It is it's the raping of children. There is no other crisis. Like, just say what it is. It's not because we've looked away from the Holy Spirit and we're not praying enough to Mother Mary and the Virgin and all this other crap. It's that you're raping children. That's the crisis. Say that. Too many of us, including myself, are raping children, and we should fucking stop and go to jail. That's the only thing that letter should say.
Yeah, we're sorry we raped you.
I'm really sorry that I've raped children. I know a ton of people that have done it, and a lot of you guys are doing it, and now you're hanging out in with the Pope talking about it, and what we really should do is go to jail.
They should just build big walls around the Vatican and keep them in.
Just put a big bomb in there.
Well, I don't advocate that personally.
Put the Moab in there, and then just be like, boom,
boom, boom, baby.
No, there's the bloodlust again. My humanity shines through.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it's crazy world we live in. There's so many crises and controversies that you could never stop reading about them. But I mean, what do you think about this subject that we've been discussing tonight, Paul?
I think that it brings out not only the human in me that actually wants to kill people like this or whatever. Like I really want these people to. I would probably support in some sense, on some level, right? The walling up of the Vatican, putting all these Catholics in there and then just blowing it up. Like there's a part of me, there's a part of the human being in me. I am definitely an ape.
All right.
Right? But it also, in contrast, speaks to the humanity. I know better. I've reasoned my way through an actual morality that puts me above that human want and desire for murder and death, right? And I know that that's not the right way to handle it, even if it does sound infinitely satisfying. What I really want is a movie where I can watch the Vatican blow up, right? And just have that moment.
Kind of like a Quentin Tarantino type revenge, slaughter, blood.
Yeah, why not? Right? Where you get to watch...
Like at the end of Inglourious Basterds,
where
they're just
Hitler's
shooting
just
his
getting
body.
shot in his face.
Yeah,
that was awesome, right? But what I really want is justice. And I know justice comes through humanism and a moral foundation in humanism. And so I know that these people have human rights. They deserve to be respected. And they definitely deserve to be put behind bars. We have to take away some of their rights as responsible human beings. It's not going to be the Holy Spirit that does this. It's going to be us.
Yeah. I would say you're right. Like here in Denver, or in our local archdiocese, the initial baby steps have been taken to get some outside exposure. The church in Rome is never going to do that unless and until they're forced to. Now, I would say from a humanist perspective, what encourages me about these stories is that victims are speaking up. That does two things. It makes it harder for criminals to continue to do acts of, vile rape and abuse and molestation. It makes it harder for them. Or ones who go to jail are taken out. They can't have access to these victims anymore. And for those victims who haven't had a voice or haven't felt the courage to stand up, seeing others do it can make it easier, and that can begin a healing process for individuals who've been through that. It's a very painful time for individuals who've had to go through that and who are having to reconcile it and come out publicly and announce it, but it's also a time of healing. So from a humanist perspective, I think that is very beneficial, very positive. Yeah, and anyway, I guess that's all I got.
I thought that was great.
Well, are you depressed, Paul?
No. No, I'm not.
Well, that's good.
I'm fired up. I love this kind of stuff in the sense that I love talking about it. I love exposing it. I love, trying to get other people to talk about it. I really hope that you guys, being our audience, tweets at us. I hope you guys put stuff on Facebook. We can publish these articles on Facebook. We can do all that kind of stuff and get you guys on the same page as we are, because this is really worth taking your time to get frothy about.
Yeah, people want to get involved and active about something that matters in society. Get educated first of all.
Well, we talked about a little bit about conspiracy theories earlier, right? And there's this big conspiracy theory that, like, there's a child sex trafficking pedophile ring.
Thing.
Well, there's Pizzagate. There's a bunch of stuff, right? We know that's a lot of that speculation. Now, you had an article that makes you wonder how what other speculation, what lines are going to be drawn in the near future based on this trial that's going to happen, but. Most of that stuff, Pizzagate especially, and most of the other stuff is speculation, and it's bunk. It's conspiracy theory nonsense. If you want to find a pedophile, sex trafficking, rapist ring, go to the Catholic Church. It's right there. You don't have to look any deeper than that. You don't have to read WikiLeaks or any of that stuff. You don't have to dig deep and follow QAnon and find out what Trump's next move is to bring Hillary to justice and all the other, evil sex trafficking, child molestation rings. You just go to the Catholic Church, bust those guys up, put them in jail. You solve a huge problem in one fell swoop.
All right, cheers to that. Secular Hub calendar of events.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Just wanted to talk about next weekend. Next weekend at the Hub is going to be pretty fun because we're coming to you on the 23rd of February. Next Saturday, March 22nd at 9:30 a.m. We have Free Thinkers in AA. So if you're looking for secular support for...
What date was that?
That's Saturday, March 2nd, 9:30 a.m. Free Thinkers in AA. So if you're looking for AA support and you don't believe in a higher power, or you just want some really cool people, come on down to the Secular Hub. It's 3100 Downing Street here in Denver, and have some chats with some really cool people. It's Alcoholics Anonymous, so it's anonymous just like anything else. So come on down. If you do go to that, or if you just want to come into the Hub later that day, Saturday, March 2nd, we have Recovering from Religion. Now, I love those Recovering from Religion guys. Have you ever been, Paul?
I have, yeah. That's where I met some of the first people I met at the Hub.
Fantastic. From the Hub website, doubt your beliefs, have questions about changing or leaving your faith? You are not alone, and we are here to help. So, yeah, it's just a support group for people who are currently leaving their religion or who left their religion in the past and are still struggling with that either loss of community or loss of self-identity or
loss of morality.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I would say it's finding a new and better morality myself, but loss of something that you're familiar with and that you've relied on and formed your identity around for many years. So Recovering from Religion, it's a really great group. They're deep. They're loving.
May I interject real quick?
Please.
So if you're looking for something to do on Monday, February 25th, that's the day after this is going to be published, at 5:30 p.m., we will have Social Hour Southeast, which will be at Citron Bistro. That's 3535 South Yosemite Street. That's in Denver, Colorado. That's 80231.
Thank you. Yeah, that's outside the Hub. So there are events outside the Hub. If you're on the south side of Denver, you can go to Social Hour Southeast on Monday. Now, next Sunday, March 3rd, 10 a.m., pancake breakfast. Typically, Sunday morning is coffee and community, where everybody sits around and has coffee and donuts and has a good bowl session, and everybody gets over-caffeinated and tells a lot of stories. It's my particular favorite time of the week. But once a month, the first Sunday is pancake breakfast. They're definitely the most popular Sunday mornings at the Hub because everybody likes pancakes.
And they don't just have pancakes. They have pancakes, French toast, scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, fruit, coffee, juice, tea.
Plus stuff that everybody brings in.
There's not usually a Bloody Mary bar, but we're working on that.
I can't say. One of our members always brings in gluten-free because he's a gluten-free guy. There's usually vegan options. We try to accommodate many people. Mm-hmm. So
we have a lot of people, so they bring their own stuff.
Yeah, come on down. It's $8 for members, $10. Excuse me, $8 for members, $10 for non-members, and half that for children. So all you can eat. I would say get there closer to 10. The food usually starts to run out about 11 a.m. Sometimes sooner if there's a lot of people there. So come on down, have pancakes. I'll be there. I'll probably be volunteering. You might see me in the kitchen.
Just ask for Jesse.
Then later that day, there's an ongoing series called Humanism at the Hub. So Sunday, March 3rd at 1 p.m., Women's History Month and Journey to Non-Belief. So Humanism at the Hub is a recurring series that explores different concepts of humanism and what it means to be a humanist and what are our values as a group. Do we share things? Do we disagree on things? It's a really interesting explanation put on by Tom and Jerry. So we would definitely encourage you to come on down to the Hub to have a discussion of that, to come down for breakfast. There's always something fun happening at the Hub. So check the website, secularhub.org. Find us, tweet at us at Secular HubCast. Find us on Facebook, our Facebook page, Secular HubCast.